away from home, but still need to fulfill the needs of your family. You make your family happy by showing them love, always listening to them, and by making each member feel content and safe. WadzPay does not require cash or cards, enabling efficient and secure transactions no matter where you are in the world. WadzPay helps you to prioritize your family. You can send digital currencies easily, quickly, and safely with a few taps of your fingers. While all is under control, there's more time for playing around. Distance means nothing when someone means everything.
Jumping on the bandwagon, do you know today that everyone, even their grandmothers and grandfather for that matter, are talking about NFT? NFT are non-fungible tokens. Some fun facts: in the Philippines have made a profit and supplemented their incomes from NFT, as in the grandmothers. In this case, NFT gaming, and another NFT magic story of Gozali, Indonesian student who took pictures of himself for 5 years and sold them as NFT, successfully fetching for more than $1 million on a platform from his NFT selfies. So how did these non-traditional and non-tech savvy everyday people get involved and adopt blockchain-based phenomena? Are these phenomena here to stay, or is it just a hype? I'm Francisca. I'm a vice president of communications WadzPay, and your host tonight on WadzPay Spotlight's first edition. WadzPay Spotlights, spotlighting everything blockchain. So because this is the first edition, what is WadzPay Spotlight? So WadzPay Spotlights bring you stories on emerging payment technology. Our mission is to help you understand WadzPay's role in this global story of blockchain-based payment innovation. WadzPay has been at the forefront of this dynamic since day one. We grew out of a recognition that blockchain technology must be covered beyond digital currencies, back-end code, or engineering. It should be covered in context and also impact. WadzPay Spotlight, spotlighting everything blockchain. So in this first episode, we'll ride the wave of flaming topics globally in a decentralized blockchain gaming space. Many of the phrases, descriptives, acronyms, buzzword, or whatever you name it, are being used interchangeably, and how these are interconnected. Before we begin the sessions, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce and share this stage with three gentlemen from WadzPay. We have Malcolm Copeland. Malcolm has more than 20 years of customer-centric emerging technology solutions development and operations experience across B2B e-marketplace, CRM, gaming, cryptocurrencies, and fintech sectors. His primary focus at WadzPay will be contribute his experience in strategic business development and innovation solutions, design expertise to WadzPay interoperable and agnostic blockchain-based payment ecosystem. And we have Steve Tunstall. Steve is a risk specialist with experience working in companies such as Cathay Pacific, Genting Casinos, and Cylinder Lift. He is the founder and director of multiple startups and other business ventures in Asia. At WadzPay, he leads compliance and risk for the group and is a main board director. He has one wife, 3 kids, and 7 cats. Interesting. And we have Stas Madorsky. Stas has more than 14 years of experience in marketing across both B2C and B2B, including at P&G. He advises multiple much-hyped digital currency projects. In his spare time, you will see him rocking dance floor as the internationally renowned DJ duo named Rave Republic. In short about myself, my name is Francisca, once again recognized as PR Agency Head of the Year 2019 by Marketing Magazine. I have more than 12 years of experience in driven communications campaigns in industries as varied as power generation, cybersecurity, venture capitals, blockchain, sports, government, and education. I'm also led the announcement of multi-million-dollar funding rounds, launch consumer and enterprise tech products, and manage numerous crisis communication situations. All right, that's a short introduction for who's on stage tonight. Stas, Steve, and Malcolm, welcome to WadzPay Spotlight first edition, and really appreciate for you all being here. So I would like to start the show with two questions. So question number one, tell the audience again, what is your name? And question number two will be, when you take a business trip, what is one thing in your briefcase that will surprise people to know? Okay, we're going to start from Steve.
Oh, thanks, Fran. It's a really good bargain opening question, that one, isn't it? Thanks. I'm Steve over here.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm Steve Tunstall. I'm one of the directors of WadzPay, and I lead compliance and risk. And what is always in my case when I travel is a pair of swimming goggles. So I don't always make it to the pool, but I have good aspirations.
All right. So thanks, Steve. Swimming goggles, that's important, actually. So, all right. So I want to know from Malcolm.
All right, Malcolm Copeland. Thanks, Francesca. I'm Malcolm Copeland, Group Head for Blockchain Payments and partnerships at WadzPay. I'd say the one thing that I do have all the time with me when I take business trips is the same book that I never read.
Okay, interesting. All right. So, Stas, what about you? Hopefully not a turntable.
Hi, everyone. No, not in this case. So I'm Stas. I head blockchain strategy for WadzPay. Something that I have, and this is going to be pretty surprising. So with a lot of the long flights I used to have, you usually get into business meetings looking a little bit worse for wear, especially because I can't sleep on airplanes. So I actually carry concealer around with me. So I slap some on, and it looks like I actually slept through the entire flight, straight to the business meeting.
Very well,
Okay.
That's great.
Okay. Welcome once again, gentlemen. Thank you so much. So this is a live virtual event hosted globally. We invite all the audience to participate, comment, ask questions on our chat box. So if you missed this first episode, please feel free to head to our WadzPay YouTube. Okay, we're gonna start the session. So as I mentioned, in this topic, we're going to describe, breaking it down one by one. What is Web3? Because there's so many buzzwords: Web3, Web 3.0, DeFi, NFT, Pop-Tart, gummy bears. I couldn't even catch up. So referring to this topic today, maybe you should breaking it down again from the system, like maybe start from Web3. So what is actually Web3? I want to know from Malcolm.
Yeah, sure, Francesca. I mean, for me, when we talk about Web3, NFT, DeFi, whatever, starting with Web3, it's tough for me to explain, because I probably say a different definition of it every single time I'm asked about it. And I'm asked about it quite frequently. And I think, having said that, the reason being is it's still being built, right? Not everybody knows what it is or how we're going to enter it, how it's going to be presented to us. What we know is what's the metaverse in Web3. But there are three principles and key things I always want to mention when it comes to that. Going from Web 2 and the centralized platforms and going to Web 3, where it's more decentralized systems and the management of information and users owning their own identity and being able to control their identity in these formats. And then the Web3, that's probably one of the main key things. And even the ability to monetize their own identities in Web3. I think that's one of the main key things for me when I try to explain what Web3 is and being able to interact in that space. And so it's the new internet, as well as digital assets. You'll be able, people will be able to basically have digital wallets and hold their digital assets and have the option to control these digital assets and monetize these assets on their own without any centralized platforms controlling their data or their assets. So they have free range to basically control their data.
Okay. So maybe let's hear it from Stas. Stas, do you want to add something from what is actually Web3? Because we have audience globally over here where there's a primary audience where they already know, really updated about this, but there's second audience, which is like I'm representing all the audience that maybe you could put it in a common language for what is Web3.
I'm going to do the opposite. And I'm going to ruffle a few feathers with my opinion here about Web 3.0 or Web 3, whatever it is. So firstly, I want to start with Web 1. And Web 1, it was quite clear and defined. This is really kind of in the infancy of retail internet. And this will show my age, but I remember Web 1, which was essentially myself downloading different Yo Mama jokes via very text-based platforms. It was always unidirectional. You wanted to get some piece of information, all you could do was get information that is there and consume it. And then you lead into what was the evolution of Web 2 essentially. And Web 2 had a much broader scope. Instead of being one way, it was really about two-way communication. So it was about interaction, sharing things, the emergence of social media. There's a lot of tenets, a lot of aspects, I should say, where Web 1 evolved. It was around being able to use better natural language search algorithms, which you can consider part of the Web 2 movement as well. So definitely it was a significant evolution where the web stopped being someone creates content and you consume it, and that's where your relationship ends, to something that was a lot more intertwined. It allowed people to become content creators. Now, what is Web 3.0? To be honest, I think right now it's a complete buzzword. And I agree with Elon Musk on that. We don't know what Web 3.0 is. This is one of those kind of almost sci-fi like concepts, is when we get there, we will know the major evolution that has happened. A lot of people in the blockchain industry, in the digital currency industry, always say, oh, we're in Web 3.0, but they're just basically commercializing on a buzzword, essentially. I think with today's technology and the way that it's set up, even decentralized platforms, whether they're gaming platforms, whether they're digital currencies themselves, they're not necessarily an evolution. Like the difference between centralized data versus decentralized data is not a significant enough difference for me, as opposed to going from 1.0 to 2.0. It was a massive difference. The everyday person had a say, and they were able to inject themselves into the platform. So my opinion about it is, I want to wait and see. Something big will happen, which is probably outside of the realms of our imagination. And when that movement happens, whichever genius comes up with it, we'll know and point to it and say, okay, this was the biggest mindset shift in the internet since Web 1.0 to 2.0, and it will be just as incremental.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Stas. So for Steve, right? Do you want to fill in, like, from the compliance and the risk perspective about on how this Web3 is going to be, I don't know, like internet.com booming back in I don't know how many ages ago. So how do you foresee this in terms of compliance and risk, Steve?
Yeah, I think I mean, I love the definitions that Stas and Malcolm have given, and there's not much I can add to that. I can give you the other simple one, and it's oversimplistic, and I'll explain why in a bit. But I mean, the Web 1.1 was sort of defined as a one-to-one thing, and Web 2 was sort of many-to-one. Web 3, many-to-many. But like Stas, I don't really know what that means yet. I think one of the important things, going back to your point, Fran, back in the day when I was first getting into the internet, which was around about the same time as Stas, there was a real passion around, wow, this is going to be freedom for everybody. We're all going to be able to do our own thing. We're no longer going to be controlled by big business. We're all going to be able to take our own power, take control of our own things. But unfortunately, as we know, as you've gone through the last sort of, well, certainly the first decade of the 20th century, we saw that all pretty well, 21st century, we saw that all pretty well closed down. And Web 2.0 is essentially now dominated by a fairly small number of big businesses. So the aspirations back in the day of having freedom for everybody and control of everything that you did turned out to be less than perfect. I think for me, I would love it if Web3, when it finally emerges, because I agree with Stas, I think we're still, if we're wandering around a darkened room, we've only discovered one corner so far. There's so much more left out there that hasn't been developed yet. And I just, from a risk perspective and a personal empowerment perspective, I just really hope that Web 3.0 does live up to the expectation that individuals actually get some of their rights back on the internet. And you can actually take more control of not only your own data, but everything else to do with your footprint on the internet. Because I think, it took a long time for people to realize that, if you weren't paying for stuff, that probably means you're the product. I think everybody gets that now. I think it'll be interesting to see whether Web 3.0 resets that clock, hopefully totally, but at least in part. Back to you, Fran.
Thanks, Steve. Really comprehensive. Yeah. Okay. So the next topic will be, the next question will be, because you agreeing to Stas where people probably doesn't know what is Web3, but speaking about the adoption of the technology, in fact, it's already has happened now. So referring to the grandma in the Philippines who made income from NFT gaming. So technically, grandmothers and grandfathers adopt a blockchain-based gaming and the play-to-earn trend. Please help me and the audience understand here, what is NFT blockchain gaming and also P2E? So probably Malcolm. Malcolm.
Sorry about that. Yep. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So NFT, gaming, or aka blockchain gaming, and PTE. Yeah, those are all, you pretty much using the same sentences these days when we're talking about blockchain-based gaming. And I think the pandemic really took things to a different level and new heights in terms of this emerging, nascent way of playing games on mobile phones or on PCs. I think you need to understand historically how games were, managed, purchased, and distributed from, producers of and publishers of the games. Typically you would just walk into a store, right, buy a cartridge, stick it in your console, and play games all day. And then the evolution of that, where there's subscription-based commercial models, free to play, and typically there you're basically stuck in one environment and not able to do anything with the assets that are in the game, right? So you're pretty much just stuck in a centralized system, and pretty much controlled by the publishers, and they provide some kind of incentives for you to keep playing or not. Today, with the play to earn, I think there's two different camps really who are engaging in the space. And that's basically one. Those that are in need, and particularly in emerging economies where there is high unemployment and they're able to access a mobile phone data and internet access. And then you also have another camp who are there just to capitalize and don't really care about the gaming or the game content at all. They just want to make some money. So having said that, in regards to, let's say, really non-savvy technical people, being able to adapt and play these games, for me, is incredible because it's not that easy. Right, you need to have access to digital assets or cryptocurrencies to even get into the game themselves. So, come on, my grandmother wouldn't know how to do that, right? So there's channels, there's avenues and routes to help, these players to get on board and on ramp and get involved. But that's just one piece of the puzzle. I think right now it's still really new. There's so many projects coming out right now at the moment, but it's hit and miss. It's like a casino slot machine and the publishers of those games. You don't know if a game's going to be really popular or not, so you put it out there. I think for me, the adoption is still, really, really low at the moment.
Right.
And until, publishers, the gaming producers are able to make it a frictionless, seamless experience where I'm not bound to have to like download a plugin wallet to be able to play the game and then fund it with cryptocurrencies, which is a whole new ballgame itself, where you have to go to an exchange or have some facility to actually acquire it. Then I don't think this is going to be a huge thing and blow up until we make it a little bit easier for the layman to get involved. But yeah, I think there is definitely a huge potential in the space. I don't think traditional formats of gaming are going away, but what I have been seeing are the traditional gaming publishers adopting play to earn as a new business model and seeing and experimenting with it at this point in time. So yeah, I think that in terms of the definition of NFT gaming is really you're using a new framework today on the internet, decentralized platform where players have actual control of in-game assets. And potentially with cross-chain transactions, able to take those digital assets, it could be a skin, it could be a knife or whatever it is, and take it over to another platform and use, monetize it or use it over there. So, yeah, I don't think it's been really done to that extent, in mass, but it's going in that direction.
Okay. Stas, so, you're a SVP blockchain strategy, right? How you see this trend, and how is WadzPay could play the role for blockchain-based payment platform to this blockchain gaming and P2E, play to earn? Stas?
Sure. So I think it's a fascinating platform for me because I'm a gamer. I've been a gamer since I was the tiniest of little kids. And I always had this kind of question. I'm investing so much of my time in playing these games, and I'm investing my money in playing these games. Isn't there some way I should be able to commercialize it? And that's generally not just the case in gaming. It's the case everywhere. You're consuming content, whether it's on TV, on YouTube, etc., and you're getting served advertising. So as a result of that, where are the benefits to me? Of course, I'm getting an enjoyment and entertainment, and I'm paying for the developer's time in a way. Be some way to reward specifically loyal people. And my one concern is, and it actually came from free-to-play gaming. So free-to-play gaming was this new paradigm where instead of paying $50 to play a game or to buy a game, you're able to participate in the game for free. But when you're participating, there's incentives that you're essentially paying to win, whereby you can upgrade your characters and do various things like that. And that was another kind of dark side of gaming. Other games also introduced microtransactions, whereby people have to pay to unlock certain aspects, downloadable content, etc. And generally with this free-to-play model, games became a little bit simplistic, like the quality significantly dropped down. They're really focused on mechanisms to make people addicted to playing the games, with some loot box mechanisms which were a little bit controversial, you would say. And in the first iterations of P2E gaming, play to earn gaming, I'm seeing those games gravitate a little bit towards that aspect as well. They're quite simplistic and really about doing a quite repetitive, monotonous task over and over again. So where I'd like to see this industry particularly go is in the development of actual AAA quality titles, like proper studios getting behind the development. Something that's going to be interesting and has longevity, has fantastic plot lines and interactions, social content and ways to do it. And if someone finds a way to commercialize that and allows people to actually also earn money by participating in those games, participating in the in-game economy, whilst teaching people about finances and managing their finances as well, it could be a very interesting space. So like my first answer, I think we're very much in its infancy still. It has a lot of potential. It's great that certain people can already make money playing games. That's every teenager's dream, basically. But how do we take it from there and go beyond just quick and simple commercialization using digital currencies to actually delivering next generation gaming experiences, which allow people to actually play and earn money?
Interesting. So, Steve, how is the vulnerability in terms of the securities? I don't know how would you see the risk of this play to earn and then also NFT gaming?
Yeah, I'm sort of like Stas in that. Yeah, I mean, I started gaming back when I was probably about 8 or 9, so I've been gaming for more years than I want to count, really. And had my own computer and engaged and played with stuff, and you know, over that time, you see exactly what Stas described. You get to the end of the level, you get your shiny diamond axe with all the gems embedded, and it's worth nothing. So there's that frustration that you've done all that work, and you get the satisfaction of completing the level, stroke section, stroke game, stroke hardcore, whatever it is, but you don't get anything else. So I think we've seen a move towards trying to monetize this over the years, and I think there's been quite a poor success in many cases. I mean, it's been great for the companies that have built monetization into their games, particularly as Stas described, when you take people to the point where they feel almost obliged to pay a little bit of money to get to the next level or to get the next shiny armor or whatever it is. And I think that's certainly from what I've seen so far, NFT gaming hasn't got a great deal beyond that yet. It's starting to do some different things and some different ideas, but my concern from from the risk, putting the risk hat on, is it just looks like traditional Web 2.0 games, but instead of encouraging people to spend a few bucks, you're encouraging them to spend a few BTC. So there's a whole issue there about how does that get managed then? If people are having to put a bit of crypto down, how do we know, or what are the systems or structures that help those people to manage that process? To Stas's point, I mean, you see very few games that are actually doing anything around financial education in that process. So I think there's some real ethical questions there around where are these games going?
Right.
How are they being managed? And how great, some people are getting some money and taking that money out, and that's fact. That's not BS. So there's people really making money from these games, but I don't know how many other people are basically falling for some sort of Nigerian prince scandal. It's just not clear to me at this stage. And I don't think, as Stas said, I don't think the sophistication is there yet with the games either. I'm not seeing with the NFT gaming stuff I've looked at anything like as good as some of the big commercial products that are still out there. I think, also what's interesting, if we watch some of these big gaming players that are moving into this space, I did see that, I know we're going to get onto this, but the likes of Epic have put down $1 billion to create a metaverse and things like that. So we are going to see some big professional gaming companies move into this space. But it's really not clear to me yet how that's going to work and how potential participants are going to be protected, to be honest.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah,
okay,
Steve,
so we have I got notified that we have a questions from Zahan Zep. Zahan Zep, thank you so much and welcome to WadzPay Spotlight. So, okay, can we take 2 questions? Dear speakers, okay?
Let's do it. Let's go.
Zahan Zep, first questions, can you predict for the global NFT market in the next 5 years if it will be grown or probably disappear? That's the first question. And then, there's a price of Jack Dorsey tweet NFTs fall to the ground. How do we know if the price of one NFT can be falling so drastically or not? In the meanwhile, keep the questions coming. Let's head back to the answer, of course, from Stas, Malcolm, and Steve. I'm just gonna throw the questions to you all. Who's going to take the first
Sure,
shot?
yeah, I can start. I can talk about the first one. My predictions for the NFT market in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Are they going to grow? Are they going to disappear?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is going to disappear, but there'll be an evolution. It's a little bit like looking at digital currencies in, let's say, in 2014. There was the marketplace, the scope of the market was completely different. Most of the tokens that you see in the top 10 or top 100 back then don't even exist today. If you look at 2017, the previous big bull run, as people would call it, in the digital currency marketplace, again, it has shifted fundamentally. But even within that, there were strong players with strong fundamentals, which were really established, which have still succeeded and are still doing really well today. I feel a similar thing will happen in the NFT marketplace. There will be a few really strong players. Others will kind of disappear. And one big differentiating point is for a couple of points, which I think will drive the long-term growth of NFTs. So firstly, I think as a market, it has potential to grow. But from a specific NFT project standpoint, the ones that will succeed are ones which are truly based on something groundbreaking in terms of art or cult. Not cult in a religious sense, but they have a cult following. Yeah. The second one is in terms of which ones have true utility. I can definitely see a lot of projects looking at the specific utility, the immutability, and the fact that it can't be essentially copied if designed correctly into anything else. And it can be used for various industries such as automotives, for healthcare, for academic certificate verification, and all of those other factors. So I feel like the next big aspect is going to be all about use cases. It's all about real world utility, and that will drive the next big wave of growth. So I feel like NFTs are a buzzword. A lot of them won't succeed in the medium to long term, but as a category, just like the digital currency market, it's going to continue expanding and growing.
Thanks, Tas. Malcolm, Steve, do you want to add how you predict the global NFT market in the next 5 years from Zahan?
Regarding, blockchain.
Sorry, Malcolm. I think you might need to talk a bit louder. We can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think there is one aspect that's really important that is being left out of the equation here when we start talking about NFTs, DeFi, blockchain gaming, that will allow and really assist the sustainability of all these things. It's security. So once people start feeling secure about these buzzwords or environments, and the masses start to adopt, digital currencies and cryptocurrencies to engage with these things and acquire these things and learn more about them, unless there's security and they're not reading about hacks every other day on the DeFi platforms or an NFT marketplace getting hacked, or Axie Infinity just the other day getting hacked, and all of a sudden nobody wants to play the game anymore, then it's not going to happen. But I think in long term, there'll be consolidation, like Stas was alluding to. There'll be many projects disappearing, but depending on the use case, business case, because it's not just NFT equals art. NFT can equal anything that you want to tokenize and put on the blockchain. And depending on what that specific use case is, yeah, sure, in 5 years, NFT market space, the place will be definitely growing and blooming there. But yeah, that's my feeling. Security is a really big aspect of all of this.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So the second question is actually from Debbie. Hi, Debbie. Thank you so much, and welcome to WadzPay Spotlight. The price of Jack Dorsey tweet NFT is fall to the ground. How do we know if the price of one NFT can be falling so drastically or not? It's about prediction, basically. So who's going to take this question?
Yeah, let me jump in and say a few things on this. So I think, building on what the guys were saying before, this really does remind me of the run up to 1999, 2000, when there was so many websites created, and they were businesses behind those websites which had no merit really at all, But because they got a buzzy web address and a few of the marketing tools, they got a lot of money, and they grew like crazy through the FOMO at that time, the fear of missing out. I think we're seeing exactly the same thing with NFTs now. And yeah, Jack Dorsey's tweet just says, "Hello, this is a test," or something like this. That's the first tweet on Twitter. I mean, so in terms of well, it's not Shakespeare, is it? Let's be honest. I mean, there's no real cultural merit there. And if yeah, I mean, unless of course Elon buys Twitter and Twitter changes out of all proportion to what it is at the moment. But I think the key to think about is, you go back to the start of the internet and you think about how all those websites were created. As has already been said, you've got to have some trust around that. You've got to have a genuine business model or something behind it, a genuine artwork. And I think we'll see that a lot of the artworks that are really valuable and have something about them, Bored Ape Yacht Club on its own is now worth a fortune. But there are, there's so many mimics and copycats of that. Are they all going to be worth a fortune as well? No, absolutely not. They're all going to fall by the wayside. And I think, even itself, Bored Ape Yacht Club, you can't tell, is that overvalued now? Is it going to be overvalued in the future? But, I don't think it'll collapse to zero, but there is an argument to say, well, the art is actually, it's nice and it's interesting, but it's not amazing. So then you come to the other uses of NFTs, and the other two guys have touched on this a little bit. I mean, if you solve those security issues, and they're not solved yet, so Malcolm's absolutely right to raise them, you start to think about, well, if I've got a permanent contract that can't be broken, what else can I connect that contract to? So if I start to connect it to property, for example, so there's already some great use cases of NFTs where you take a property, a really good prime property in New York or somewhere, and you basically then fractionalize that NFT and sell it off. So everybody can now own a property on a top location in New York, but you don't own all of it. You own a fraction of it through an NFT process. Think about what that also does to intellectual property rights. Think about what it does to music rights. Think about a situation where someone like Rihanna, and I've talked about this a few times on the Webios, if Rihanna's got 150 million followers on Twitter and she wants to fund her next project using a fractionalized NFT process, she can raise an absolute fortune in a minimum amount of time. And because of the way the ownership of NFTs works, she can retain a much larger proportion of her artist rights than is anyway possible under the current system. So there's all sorts of innovation and new approaches that'll come out of this. So I think in 5 years' time, I think it's probably fair to say that Jack Dorsey's tweet will be worth less than it was when the guy bought it. But I think the whole of the rest of the NFT space will be thriving, and we'll all be there. We'll all be living that dream, I think.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's head back to the discussion floor. So we discussed before about what is Web3, NFT, blockchain gaming, and then there's so much distinction about gaming when we say blockchain gaming, right? So one of them, esports. How will we transform esports into this gaming niche and the entire esports ecosystem ideal for blockchain-based digital currencies payment? So I'm going to throw these questions to Malcolm.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, when we look at this, gaming niche of esports, this whole ecosystem is consisting of a lot of different profiles, right? You've got teams, you've got community, fans, management, professional management companies. So I know here at WadzPay, we're already talking to management companies who have live use cases and issues that they approach us with, and we're trying to solve. So one is just paying out rewards and loyalty to their communities, right? Some of these management companies have 50,000 followers and fans of their teams that they want to reward, and they need a facility to be able to remit or transfer, let's say tokens, for example, to their community as a reward. And, doing that to the traditional finance rails is quite expensive, right? So, I mean, let's just get that out of the way. So they're coming to us to try to leverage blockchain payment rails and, basically save a fraction of the cost of transferring store value. And then, I look at the esports, and when I first came across this on ESPN years ago and seeing this on national TV, I was shocked. And I saw that, wow, you've got a stadium filled with 50,000 people. One use case I would see there is again, centered around payments and using the blockchain to be able to even just sell the ticketing or the tickets to these fans. So they don't have to, they save paper, people entering the stadium, they could just use their phone, use a QR code, scan and validate the ticket, whether or not it's, real or fake or fraudulent transaction. And look, you've got 50,000 transactions, saving trees, and, stadium full of 50,000 people watching these teams compete. So, I mean, there's tons of things. I'll leave it to my colleagues here to, add on to it. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different potentials there.
Okay, thanks, Malcolm. Sorry,
Right.
due to interest of time, I got notified that we have one last questions of the night from our Instagram. Algorand. Okay, yes, Algorand already launched P2E game called Cosmic Champs. Is it possible that WadzPay will launch their own P2E game in the future, since WadzPay now becomes a partner for Algorand? Yeah, this question is from Didi. Didi, thank you so much, and welcome to WadzPay Spotlight. So Algorand and WadzPay launched their own P2E game in the future. So who's going to answer this? Stas, maybe?
Yeah, I can take that for sure, Fran. So we are launching. We've partnered with Frontera, as a lot of people know. That's launching in the very near future. It's a P2E game. It starts off with people collecting NFTs. They mint the NFTs. They unlock various characters, which vary in multiple tiers of rarity. They can use those NFTs to essentially stake and mine for various other rewards tokens. And in the future, they're going to be able to use those NFTs as well to battle other players. It's a typical play-to-earn game. Each card has specific stats. They can be upgraded. They can be evolved. And people can kind of benefit from that economy. That's the first step. With Algorand, that's something that we can definitely consider in the future. But we have our lowest hanging fruit with Algorand. And it's really about changing the face of payments. And of course, gaming is related to payments. And we've talked about that. Malcolm definitely alluded to it as well. But we have really big fish to fry. Gaming is a great use case, especially for me, because I'm so passionate about it. But when it comes to things we really need to crack and accelerate, how to accelerate blockchain adoption, we really want to focus on specifically payments at retail POS in real time. We want to focus on CBDCs and a lot of other projects. So I think less important to launch a play-to-earn game on Algorand, but still particularly interesting.
Okay, so are we going to launch or not?
One day. Frontera first.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Taz, for the answer. All right, can we take another question? One more question? Yeah, okay. So, so one question is actually asking about metaverse, but we're gonna hold that question. So before that, we answer that question. So one last discussion. So all of these spaces like Web3 and blockchain gaming, NFT that we discussed before is dive down to metaverse. So where is this coming from? So where are we now as a blockchain-based payment platform, and how can we actually play the part? So Malcolm and Stas, Steve?
I'm one of the hands-on in-house gurus of the metaverse on our squad. So let's let him have a crack at it first. Steve.
Oh, me? You mean I'm? Yeah.
You train 50 people on the metaverse, so hey.
Yes, Steve.
I would. Well, that's that. So I'm put on the spot now by these guys because these are the real experts. But the simple the simple thing is again, like everything else we've been talking about, the metaverse is very much at the early stages. I think a lot of us who've been involved in tech for a while remembered all the hype around Second Life when that came out. I mean, that must be a decade ago now. And of course, when you actually got there, it was like a Roblox with no functionality, basically. So it was all pretty crap. And I think, looking around at the metaverses that are coming out now, some of them, I have to admit, some of them are not that much better. I mean, I might offend people, but I actually find Decentraland a bit dull. There doesn't seem to be a great deal to do there yet. I know it's early days and it's developing, but I wasn't so impressed when I had a look on there. Sandbox seems a bit better, so I'm sort of enjoying playing around on that. And I have a little bit of land there, just a tiny amount, just to have some skin in the game. And also, I like in particular, the one I've been most attracted to so far is NFT Worlds, on the basis that that's basically owned by Microsoft. So they're not going to run out of money soon. And it's based right on the back of Roblox. And already, every 8-year-old on the planet's playing Roblox. So it's once those guys are making a little bit of money for themselves, then that's going to be the natural place that people will gravitate to. But I think overall, when we're looking at the metaverses we have now, I think it's a far cry from what we envision in the future. The idea of having something that's much more like a Ready Player One type universe, where you can really go in and feel that it's immersive and feel that you're really out of your body and you're living in a different universe. I think we're still a long way from that at the moment. I mean, I'd love to be there. I'd love to be Perseus or whatever it is. I'd love to be on that game and do all those things. But seriously, from the stuff I've seen so far, we're not there yet.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Steve. Okay, so let's head back to the question. Is it true Meta will take a commission, almost 50% for every creator that sells their art or products on Metaverse? I'm not sure this. Okay, so this is anonymous. Yeah, welcome to WadzPay Spotlight. Yeah.
Let me take that with my legal hat on. I think there's nothing we're going to say about Meta as a company tonight. But I think it would be disappointing if big tech came to dominate the metaverse. I think for me personally, I'd find it disappointing if there was a sense that people were going to be exploited by that sort of approach. So I don't want to address that question head on. But I think, as I mentioned earlier on, it would be a real shame if we don't get all of us get more empowered and more ability to do our own thing through these new technologies. So that's probably enough on that one.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. All right, so that will be the last question of the night. I promise. So before we wrap up, anything do you want to add up before the wrap up session? How would you see this space in relate to WadzPay role? Back to the topic, Web3, NFT, blockchain gaming, and all that. Before we close the session, from Steve, Stas, and also Malcolm, how would you see this space relate to our as a industry player?
Sure. So I think I can start by wrapping up what we talked about, and then head over to Steve to add on to that, and Malcolm can kind of close it off. And I think you added a lot of interesting points about where WadzPay fits into all of those different aspects. So for me, one interesting thing, and although I constantly said we don't know what this looks like, Web 3.0, and Steve said the same thing about the metaverse. And all of us pretty much said P2E gaming is in its infancy. I'd like to make some bold predictions about what it can essentially be. And ultimately, let's start with the metaverse, because NFTs are pretty easily defined, let's face it. Play to earn gaming, we understand what that is. Metaverse, Web 3.0, they're like creative constructs at this stage of the game. So the current universe that we live in, it's pretty much, it's us, it's our individualities. We know who we are. We know how we present ourselves to people. When you bring Web 2.0 into it, yes, we can tailor our personalities a little bit. We can behave in different ways. I'm a very different person, for example, on my Instagram stories versus my Facebook newsfeed, versus how I would be on Reddit because I'm anonymous there. In the same way we talk differently to our parents as we do to our friends. It's still our personality in a way, but we slightly modify it and change it. But at the end of the day, it's us as a human being. And in gaming, it's the same thing. Currently, gaming is very vertically driven, just like the world of blockchain as well. But with gaming, right, you finish playing a particular game and you jump into another game, there's no transferability. They're completely separate things. So in my opinion, what could happen and what could be the Web 3.0 and what could be the metaverse, and I think the two could be very much the same thing. It's where our physical identities are essentially left behind. We become so anonymous with our own identities that we take another form, and that form is going to be consistent across all of the platforms, whether it's going to be social media, whether it's different games. We would basically live potentially as avatars within this so-called metaverse, which will span across every gaming construct, every website platform. It would just be that representation that we create for us.
Stas? All right.
I think we lost Stas.
Yeah. So Stas, Steve and Malcolm, you have 2 minutes each. Sorry.
No problem. Let me pick off where Stas was going.
Yeah, go on.
I mean, in terms of what WadzPay brings to this and supports that vision, and I share Stas's vision. This is going to be an amazing future, and I really can't wait. I'm so excited to be in this space and feel privileged to work for a company like WadzPay on projects that we're involved in. And of course, one of the things that, there's a lot of stuff going on in the background, guys, that we can't share because we're sort of, we've signed all sorts of disclaimers and things, but I can tell you there's some really wonderful stuff going on that is pretty mind-blowing to me. So I can't wait till we get to the position we can get some of these things launched and clear. I think one of the things in particular, and I'll pass to Malcolm surely, but I think one of the things particular that I like about WadzPay is that with our expertise and our quality of hires, we're really rooted in not only the technology side of things, but historically understanding how the finance world works, understanding how the regulatory world works. And rest assured, this stuff's all going to get regulated at some stage in the future. It feels a bit Wild West at the moment, but I'm pretty sure that it's not going to be so wild in the future. That's going to be part of building trust. And I think it's great to see that WadzPay are at the heart of this, thinking these things through and doing them in a business-like manner. So the vision is amazing, and I'm so proud to be part of this. But we also need to have a proper, constructive, long-term business, and that's equally as important. So let me go to Malcolm to finish and blow our minds, Malcolm.
Thanks, Steve. Malcolm?
Your sound is very quiet again, Malcolm.
Okay. I'll try to speak up here. Just let me know if you can hear me or not. But in terms of WadzPay as a business, we're really focused on enterprise, right? So we are a B2B company. And, as Steve was saying earlier, we have a C-suite and executive management and board who know everything and anything regarding the traditional finance and payment rails. So having said that, today, day to day, we're talking to banks, digital banks, central banks, payment gateways, national payment gateways, acquirers, issuers, and really educating them about this new cashless society that we're going to, right? In terms of digital currencies, even they're asking us about NFTs, for God's sakes, So, they're very, very, very interested to adapt. So what we're doing is really partnering up with traditional finance and helping them adapt to the new payment rails on the blockchain and to integrate new alternative payment methods into their existing operations. And we also collaborate with other fintechs and blockchain organizations because we don't really see a huge element when it comes to it does exist, but competition, right? So I think there's enough room right now for a lot of partnerships to be forged, and a lot of opportunities for the adoption of digital currency payments. And this is what we're doing, right? As a company, we're building infrastructure and emulating traditional payment rails, but into the blockchain space. So it's really interesting, and you're going to hear a lot more about these governments and putting together regulations and frameworks for us to advance and move forward. And in particular, where we're based in APAC and the Middle East and Africa at the moment, in these emerging economies, digital assets, digital currencies are going to be very, very, very prevalent in the space. But yeah, I mean, for WadzPay as a business, this is what we're doing, and, partnering up, and we provide B2B solutions that actually extend to B2C. So we cover the whole gamut, and we empower, large traditional finance companies to engage, in this space.
Okay. Thanks, Malcolm. All right. So
Francesca.
we should wrap up now. The key takeaways from tonight's session, if I may, to conclude over here, we believe that with the emerging technology today, and despite all the confusion of the buzzword, Web3, NFT gaming, metaverse can positively impact the world. And creating an in-game economy where digital assets can be earned in exchange for real money takes the gaming industry by storm. The process of buying in, performing in-game transactions, and then off-ramp or cashing out to local fiat currency on this blockchain-based game isn't as frictionless and seamless as we would like. Still, this user experience will evolve and improve. Stas, Steve, and Malcolm, thank you so much for the insightful discussion. See you on the next episode of WadzPay Spotlight. And thank you for all the viewers all around the world. We also love your feedback about this show, including what topic you would like us to discuss in the next episode. Please send us feedback to our social media at WadzPay and subscribe to our YouTube channel, WadzPay Spotlight, spotlighting everything blockchain. Francisca is signing out, and thank you so much. See you on the next episode.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for
Thank
listening.
you.
Bye.
As you're back.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Today is your special day, your anniversary. But somehow, she thinks that you don't seem excited. Sometimes things don't always go according to plan. You just need to keep the spark alive. Finding something special you love from your childhood can be like opening a memory jar. Very little is needed to make a happy life. WadzPay helps you to secure your happiness. Just by scanning the QR code, you can make a safe and secure transaction using digital currencies. It would compromise to maintain a happy relationship. With WadzPay, you can prepare for anything. Simplicity, efficiency in your hand. When you realize you want to spend the rest of your body, you know it's love when all you want is that person to be happy. Make every moment special.